Date, November 18th, 2023. Location, somewhere between misery and regret. Everything's fucked. I mean the business, the bounty, the midlife crisis. I've hit the trifecta. It's a Saturday night, everyone's out there getting drunk, pretending their lives don't suck, while I'm stuck watching the Steve Harvey Show reruns with my boots resting on a werewolf skull that's probably worth less than the beer in my hand. This used to be a thriving gig, you know? People paid good money for exotic trophies. Now, I offered a grade A, clean kill leaking skull to an old hunter, asked for $500. The bastard looked at me like I was peddling knockoff Crocs at a gun show. Said he might give me $80. 80 for a werewolf that nearly tore my leg off. I should have tossed the skull at his truck. No wonder the bounty's dried up, ain't many werewolves left to hunt. The Drogo families, rich freaks who used to collect supernatural remains like baseball cards, apparently got bored. Probably moved on to aliens or lizard people or whatever Reddit's feeding them now. So here I am, broke as hell, wondering if I can auction off my underwear on the dark web just to keep gas in the truck. The lone wolf dream, to be the alpha predator. Thanks, Marines. Real solid plan. Serve your country, they said. See the world. Yeah, saw plenty, especially in 2020 Nevada desert, 30 miles west of nowhere. Night Ops Standard Recon. That's when I saw it. At first, I thought it was a dog. Ugly mutt, maybe rabid. But then it stood up. On two legs. 7 feet tall, fur like it lost a bar fight with a cactus, and those eyes, not animal. Not human but just wrong. Lunged at Rick, my comrade. Poor bastard didn't even get to scream properly. Thing ripped his heart clean out of his chest, left his guts decorating the desert like some satanic party streamer. And I stood there, like a frozen sack of government-issued failure. Didn't even squeeze the trigger. Just watched. That was the night I stopped sleeping right. The night everything went sideways. And the worst part? That wasn't even the strangest thing I've seen since. I started looking for answers. Big mistake. Cost me my squad. Cost me my clearance. Cost me what little grip I had on reality. I've seen things that'd make Stephen King piss himself. Heard voices in the woods that speak your name in reverse. Fought things that bleed black, and I don't mean metaphorically. Literal black sludge. But I'm still here. Still trying to make it make sense. Still trying to find that thing that killed Rick. Maybe it's dead. Maybe I killed it already. Or maybe it's still out there, laughing every time I drink myself stupid. Either way, welcome to my world. Grab a drink, hold on to your guts, and let's open another one of Grandpa's files. This one's gonna be a ride. The alcohol brings back memories, how it all started, how I got hooked up into this business. Was this all my destiny? Date, September 2020. Location, New Mexico. Arrived back in my ATV to Fort Stillwater, some dusty-ass army base in New Mexico that smelled like boiled socks and depression. I was dragging sand and shame with me. Soon as I rolled in, Staff Sergeant Blake came stomping over like he was auditioning for Full Metal Jacket 2, Cactus Edition. "Where the hell is Corporal Rickman?" he barked, eyes scanning behind me like Rick was just late for roll call. "He's gone, sir. Something took him," I muttered, barely audible over the engine still coughing behind me. Blake's expression shifted from pissed to confused to full military-grade constipation. Something like, what, a cartel hitman in a fursuit? They dragged me into debrief so fast my boots squealed on the floor. A round table of humorless meatheads and desk jockeys waited for me like I just shit on the American flag. Lieutenant Colonel Harris, a guy with a permanent frown and a voice like rusted metal, leaned in. "You want to clarify what you mean by a beast, Corporal?" "Sir, it was about 7 feet tall, canine features, stood on 2 legs, tore Rick's chest open like a soda can." I froze. I didn't even shoot. They didn't like that. Not one bit. "What were your orders?" barked Harris. "To locate possible cartel routes west of Nevada desert, sir." "And instead, You report werewolf sightings? Jesus Christ, Corporal. The next week was a blur of shrinks, hearings, and a thick stack of paperwork. I was the joke of Fort Stillwater. They took my weapon, suspended my clearance, and made me mop floors like I was training to be Cinderella. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. I'd jolt awake at 2 a.m. with Rick's scream echoing in my skull. Couldn't even collect his dog tag. Court trial dragged for 2 weeks. Uniform sloppy. Face a thicket of regret and unshaved beard. I looked like I'd been raised by raccoons. Corporal Dawson, any final statement before this court? The JAG officer asked me. No, sir, I whispered. I got nothing left to say. And that was it. Dishonorable suspension. Just like that. No medal, no flag, no apology. First day back out in the civvy world, I drove straight to my mama's house in El Paso. The old one-story still had that weird Jesus candle in the window, like it could ward off demons or tax collectors. Mama opened the door, saw me, and burst into tears. She hugged me like I'd come back from the grave. What happened to your face, son? You look like a drunk raccoon. I saw something, Mama. Took Rick, wasn't no man. She sat me down, fed me hot stew and more denial. Maybe it was just a mountain lion, sweetheart. You boys always think you're fighting monsters. I shook my head, dead serious. Mama, this thing stood like a man. I looked into its eyes. And because she's Mama, she ignored the horror part and went right to matchmaking. You know who you should meet? Estefania. Her daddy owns a tire shop. Strong hips, you could use a woman to settle you down. Ma, I just watched my friend get gutted by a cryptid and you're trying to marry me off like this is The Bachelor, PTSD edition. She scoffed. Better than crying in your cereal. Later that night, I was sitting on my old twin bed in my childhood room, Predator and Arnold posters on the wall, the plastic smell of old action figures still in the air, when Dad came in. He didn't say much. Just sat beside me. You still drawing monsters, huh? He said, picking up my sketchbook with the crude outline of the beast. Trying to, I muttered. He stared at the page, eyes dark. I know someone who might believe you, he said finally. Let's go get a beer. So we did. Pulled up to this little dive called the Rusty Bullet, somewhere between a bar and a biker's garage. We sat at the end of the counter drinking watery cores, watching a ceiling fan threaten to fall on us. We're waiting for someone, Dad said. Old friend of mine. I lit a cigarette and stared at the door. Lit up a Victory Reds, my old sin stick of choice. I still remember sneaking those from Dad's drawer back in high school. He thought hiding them behind the boring tax files would stop me. Yeah, right, I knew that cabinet better than I knew algebra. Mom knew, of course. She always knew. You're smoking again, aren't you? She'd say, stirring the stew. You reek like a motel ashtray. And yet, she'd smile. She'd always follow it up with her favorite interrogation. Still no girlfriend? Come on, you're in high school. Me and your father met when we were 16. He used to sneak me out during math class. That's love, honey. Yeah, they were high school sweethearts. Back when mixtapes were currency and love letters had actual handwriting. She'd go on about how he passed her a folded note in chemistry class that just said, "Wanna run away and never pay taxes?" Romance, 1980s style. I wasn't exactly the heartthrob type. I was quiet, the kind who didn't say much but didn't get bullied either, probably because I looked like I'd bite someone if they tried. I had a tight circle, 2, maybe 3 friends. All dudes, all weird in their own way. Played football, but I was more waterboy than wide receiver. Still, I caught a few looks from the girls in the stands. Never knew what to do with them, though. Eye contact was my Everest. Thing was, I always thought I had to be someone bigger, badder. Like Arnold in Predator. Problem was, I wasn't built like a brick wall with a machine gun. I was more 5 feet 10 inches, 165 pounds, athletic, but not exactly action figure material. Still, I ran fast and hit hard, and I had that fire. Just didn't know where to point it. And now, years later, I was sitting in a dusty-ass bar, drinking with my dad, and waiting for a stranger to walk through the door with answers. Or at least, a reason not to blow my brains out from all this werewolf bullshit. Then he walked in. Bald, tall, built like a tank that had been through every war since Vietnam. His face was a battlefield, for deep gashes tore down the right side like God himself had tried to erase him. His nose looked like it got into a losing argument with a blender. His eyes, though, cold steel. I stared. He stared back, unblinking. Dad stood up. "Mr. Edgar. Long time no see." "Ah," the man said, voice rough like gravel in a blender. The old ghost himself. "Good to see you, Frank." He looked at me next, squinting like he was measuring my soul. "Your son's grown up now. Still got your wife's eyes." Dad chuckled, a little awkward. "Yeah. She still puts up with me somehow. I haven't seen her since, what, the Utah incident?" Dad nodded. "That was a mess. You were bleeding from 5 holes and still tried to drive. Well, someone had to get us out of that hellhole." They laughed, like it was just a camping trip gone wrong. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there wondering if this guy bathes in silver dust and bleeds wolfsbane. Edgar pulled out a flask and handed it to me. "Drink. It burns like sin and tastes like guilt." I took a swig. "It did." He leaned in. "Your dad says you saw it. The thing." I nodded, jaw tight. Took my friend. Tore him apart. I couldn't move. He looked into my eyes like he was reading the fine print of my trauma. "You froze." "That's normal, it's human." "No, it was cowardice," I snapped. He shook his head. "It's what keeps you alive. Fear is not weakness, it's instinct." Edgar took a long pull from his flask and stared at my dad across the table, like they were talking in some secret Morse code of regrets and half-remembered corpses. "Listen, Frank," he said, voice low and gravelly. "Your son's a fine, handsome specimen. Built like a soldier. Got that fire. But I suggest he doesn't look deeper into this. Secrets like these, they bite back." Dad gave him a hard look. "You think I don't know that?" Edgar leaned in, elbows on the table, voice dropping further. "There are repercussions to this game. This ain't hunting deer. He came across a specimen, one that might be wandering. Might be dormant. Might be something else entirely. You don't want to chase what you can't cage." I sat there, half listening, trying to piece together their cryptic chess match. They talked like priests guarding some cursed book. I kept my mouth shut for a minute, dragging on my victory reds, the cherry burning bright like my patience. "Mr. Edgar," I said finally, exhaling smoke. "Let me tell you something." He looked at me like I was a toddler asking to borrow a grenade. When I locked eyes with that beast, the first thing that happened was nothing. Nothing. I couldn't react. And that's not normal, not for me. I've been trained. I've been through survival drills, desert recon, and urban war games. But this thing, it didn't just scare me. It awakened something. A primal fear. Something buried deep that I didn't even know was there. Edgar didn't interrupt. Just kept watching, like he was measuring my words on a scale. "So don't sit there and tell me it's normal. You don't know the paranoia I've been swimming in. The dreams, the eyes. Every night Rick screams. And I just watch. You know what the army did? Suspended me, like I was the problem." I slammed the beer bottle down. I don't even know if Rick would forgive me if he could. But I know this, I need to do something. Edgar chuckled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of laugh you give when someone's already halfway into the grave. "Son," he said, "what you saw isn't bound by any law you understand. Not military, not federal, not even natural. These things, they've been here long before us. And not just one. Many." He looked back at my dad. "I suggest he forget it. Get married. Settle down. Grill on Sundays. Pay taxes. Be boring. It's safer." Dad rubbed his chin, face stone still. "You might not want your son chasing demons, Frank," Edgar said quietly. "You remember what happened to—" He stopped mid-sentence. His jaw clenched, like he was about to vomit a name he'd buried years ago. He never said it. That pissed me off. "Please, Mr. Edgar," I said. "I beg you. Just tell me what I saw." He stared at me. Something flickered in his eyes. Rage, fear, pity? Then he said one word. "Dogman." That was it. One damn word. Like it was supposed to explain everything. Then he stood up, grabbed his coat, slammed his flask shut, and stormed out the bar like he just remembered he left the oven on in hell. I sat there frozen, the word echoing in my head like a gunshot in a canyon. Dogman. Sounded stupid. Sounded made up. But it made too much goddamn sense. I looked at Dad. He looked back, eyes tired. And neither of us said a damn thing. Edgar left the bar like a storm, fast, angry, and leaving more questions than answers. Just one damn word, Dogman. Felt like a punchline without a joke. I sat there with my cigarette burned down to the filter, the ember barely holding on. Kind of like me. My dad didn't speak for a while. We paid the tab, got back in his dusty Ford, and drove in silence. Somewhere between regret and understanding, he finally broke it. "Son, here." He passed me a scrap of paper. Folded 3 times, smelled faintly of whiskey and old regrets. "That's Edgar's number. In case you feel lost. He's grumpy, yeah, but he's a good man. If he sees something in you, he'll take you in." I stared at it. Handwritten numbers, crooked like they were afraid of standing in a straight line. Dad continued, eyes locked on the road. "It's time you followed your path. These types of things, they're a greater calling. You don't choose them. They choose you. No one knows how life ends up, but it is what it is." He paused like he was remembering a time he almost didn't survive. "To kill a nightmare, you have to face it. Period." I didn't say anything, but something inside me shifted. For the first time since Rick's blood soaked into the sand, I felt purpose. Not closure, but maybe direction. My old man wasn't exactly Yoda, but that line, "to kill a nightmare, you have to face it," hit me right between the ribs. We got home. The beer and cigarettes started doing their slow waltz in my bloodstream. I crashed onto my bed like I'd fallen off a cliff. My head rolled sideways and landed square on my poster of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Him in full predator mode, covered in mud, holding that machete with the same look I saw in Rick's eyes before he screamed. Maybe it was the alcohol or maybe something spiritual, but right then I knew what I needed to do. I grabbed the paper. The numbers stared back like a dare. Pulled out my clunky Motorola, punched it in. "The number you are trying to reach is currently busy. Please leave a voice message." I cleared my throat, heart pounding. "Mr. Edgar, it's me, Frank's kid. Look, I know you're concerned, but give me a chance. I won't disappoint you, please." I hung up, waited 2 minutes. Called again. Same message. "Mr. Edgar, please. I need to know what this thing is. I can't sleep. I can't eat. I don't even know who I am anymore. Please call me back. Edgar, I know you probably think I'm weak or green or just another dumb grunt looking for a ghost story. But I saw that thing tear Rick apart. I heard it, and I felt something inside me break that day. You know what that feels like. I know you do. So help me." Over and over. I must have left over 100 voicemails. I didn't even remember falling asleep. 1 second I was rambling into the phone, the next, blackout. I woke up with a pounding headache, smelling like regret and smoke. I rubbed my eyes, light snuck through the curtains like a thief. Checked my phone. 1 message. 8 blocks away. Black house. No windows. Reinforced concrete walls. Come alone. I shall be waiting. 5 p.m. No name. No signature. Just cold, hard instructions. It felt like a horror movie setup. Damn it. It was 4:30 p.m. and I was still laid out like a goddamn pig. Flat on my back, drooling into the pillow, stomach full of beer foam and regret. If someone saw me, they'd say I died 3 days ago. But truth? That was the best sleep I'd had in years. Like the nightmares took a day off and let me breathe. I snapped awake in full panic mode. Shit. I jumped up, pulled on the first shirt I could find. It had a hole near the armpit and a faded Semper Fi logo. Jeans, slightly torn, boots untied. Fashion disaster, but operational. Classic veteran chic. Slammed the bathroom door open, brushed my teeth in 12 seconds flat, and splashed water on my face like I was baptizing a demon. Then I dashed out the door like a man who missed a flight to hell. I grabbed a Snickers bar from the freezer, buckled it in my pocket like it was ammunition. Blood sugar matters, especially when dealing with cryptid-adjacent psychos named Edgar. Now the keys. Where the hell were the keys? Come on. Checked the couch, the sink, under a pizza box, even the goddamn fridge. Who the hell puts car keys in a fridge? Me, apparently. By the time I got them, 5 minutes had passed. I looked at the time, 4:47 p.m. Too close traffic? Forget it. I ran. Like full-on boots on pavement, soldier on a mission kind of running. I hadn't run like that since the Corps, and my lungs were begging for a union strike. But I didn't care. There was something weirdly joyful about it. Like being a kid running to the store because you heard they restocked Pokemon cards. Or getting your first video game console. Hope mixed with adrenaline. Nostalgia dipped in sweat. As I crossed the 5th block, things got strange. The streets started changing. First, the homes looked a little off. Paint chipping in places paint shouldn't chip. Lawns growing weeds that didn't even look native. Mailboxes bent like they'd been hit with something bigger than a baseball bat. The deeper I went, the more it felt like a dream within a dream. Like those backrooms you only reach in a glitchy video game. No people. No cars. Just wind and decay. Where the hell am I? Block 6, no lights, no movement. Block 7, windows boarded up. Graffiti in a language I didn't recognize. Block 8, I saw it. The Black House. Still standing like a bunker from a Cold War fever dream. Reinforced concrete walls. No windows, one door, the kind of place the government would deny exists. I ran up the steps, heart hammering. Just as I lifted my hand to knock, a sharp, throat-ripping bark that made my bones hum. I froze mid-knock. More barking. Violent, angry. Whatever was behind that door wanted blood, and I was the stake. Holy hell! The door rattled hard, like something was throwing itself against it. The steel vibrated with each slam. Then I heard it. Ragnar, calm the fuck down. It's a friend. Edgar's voice. Rough, annoyed but firm. Like a teacher scolding a pit bull with PTSD. The barking stopped instantly. No growl, no snarl. Just silence. The door creaked open, slow and ominous like every haunted house scene you've ever watched. There stood Edgar. Same old trench coat. Same scarred face. He looked at his watch. 5:02 p.m., he said. For a trained corporal, I think you should value the essence of time. I started to explain, but he raised a hand. A victory or loss in war, he continued, can hinge on 2 seconds. You better be more careful, son. He didn't say it like a threat. More like a father watching his kid flub a science project but still caring enough to help clean the mess. His voice was rough sandpaper, but the advice stuck. Yes, sir. He stepped aside. I walked in. The house was darker than I expected. No lights except a dull amber glow from lanterns lining the hallway. The air smelled like oil, gunpowder, and something distinctly canine. You live here? Edgar smirked. No, I survive here. He gestured for me to follow. We walked past the main hallway into a room filled with things I didn't expect to see. Animal skulls, military maps, silver-tipped weapons, clay jars, old photographs, and books, hundreds of them, most with no titles on the spines. than I saw. A pit bull. Muscles rippling under his coat. Face hidden under steel jaws that looked rough. I could feel that was more than aesthetics. It was to protect anyone else from getting hurt. This dog's a monster. His eyes glowed faint yellow. He stared at me. "Don't move," Edgar said. "He's still sniffing." Ragnar walked around me in a slow circle, growled once, then exhaled, sat down. "He likes you," Edgar said. "Or he doesn't hate you yet, close enough." Comforting. Edgar nodded toward a chair. "Sit." I sat. He poured 2 glasses of something brown. Passed one to me. "What is this?" "Whiskey." I took a sip. It tasted like battery acid but felt like a hug. "You want the truth, kid?" Edgar said. "About what you saw?" I nodded. "Well, too bad. You ain't ready for the truth. Not all of it." My eyes narrowed. "Then why bring me here?" "Because you're like I was once. Angry, scared, curious. That's the worst combination. Gets you killed. Or worse, gets you changed." He leaned closer. "That thing in the desert? You said it made you freeze. Made you feel primal fear. That's not human fear. That's animal fear. That's your blood remembering a time when we weren't top of the food chain." I didn't say anything. You don't fight these things with just guns. You need to know why they exist, where they hide, what they want. Otherwise, you're just meat in a uniform. "And the dogman?" I asked. He looked down at his glass. "There's more than one. Always has been. This is your first test. You passed by showing up. The next one? You'll know it soon." "Mr. Edgar," I said, gripping the glass tighter, whiskey still burning my throat like molten ash. "I don't just need answers. I need a path. I need to know what to do." He didn't speak for a moment. Just looked at me over the rim of his own glass, then let out a deep breath. "Come along, son." That was all he said. He set his drink down. Walked over to the living room rug, a big, dusty old thing that looked like it was bought in 1975 from a haunted Persian bazaar. He lifted it in one swoop. Underneath, wooden floorboards. Nothing unusual until he started pulling them up. Wooden crates beneath. Hidden hinges. Metal loops. And then he twisted something underneath the crate latch. It creaked open with a groan like the house was sighing. That's when the smell hit. Foul, rotten, aged gasoline, dried blood, sweat that had been fermenting for decades. Something old and something feral that had once screamed in pain and never stopped. I gagged. My whiskey tried to crawl back up my throat. The pit bulls, who had been circling me since I got here, went silent. Completely still, Ragnar, his face now behind a massive steel muzzle that looked custom forged by a blacksmith. The change in them was instant. No barking, no pacing, they dropped their tails and stared at the opening. Their obedience wasn't discipline, it was fear. Something about that basement tickled the ancient part of their brains that still remembered predators older than wolves. Ragnar whimpered once. Edgar looked back and muttered, "Stay." He grabbed a lantern, opened a heavy trapdoor and descended the stairs. I followed. Every step creaked like a dying tree. The air grew hotter and heavier, thick, like breathing through a damp rag soaked in sweat and diesel fuel. I didn't say a word. My boots clunked down the wood behind his, and with each level we descended, the smell got worse. It was more than just blood and rust and mold. It was history, bad history. Violent, primal, forbidden. And then we reached it. The room, if you could even call it that. It was the size of a basketball court, maybe more. Ceilings high enough to echo your voice back at you in a whisper. The walls were concrete but layered with steel reinforcements. Like a military-grade panic bunker had a baby with a madman's torture den. Hot, humid air lingered like a thick mist. Edgar saw me wince. "Hang on," he grunted. Walked over to a corner, flipped a lever. A generator kicked on with a deep growl, followed by the soft hiss of air conditioning. Then he hit the light switch. The lights buzzed to life one by one. First the overhead fluorescents, then wall-mounted industrial lamps, and finally the center chandelier, made entirely of twisted iron and chain links, flickered to life, casting sharp shadows across the chamber. And that's when I saw it, all of it. Lining one wall were glass chambers, about 20 of them, narrow, upright. Inside each was a skeleton, some vaguely human, others very much not. Some were 8 feet tall, with elongated arms and skulls shaped like wolves in midshift. Others had claws the size of machetes. One of them had 2 spines. Another had horns. They weren't laid to rest. They were preserved, suspended in something thick and yellowish, amber fluid with tiny bubbles, like carbonated formaldehyde. The glass had frost around the edges, temperature controlled, and those were just the ones I could see clearly. 3 more chambers, larger, industrial-grade containment units, were blacked out. Steel shutters pulled over them. Warning signs in red paint. My stomach did somersaults. What the hell is all this? I whispered. Edgar said nothing. He just walked forward, past the glass tombs, to the other side of the room. There, it was a whole different story. A weapons zone. Half armory, half doomsday prepper's wet dream. There was a rack of AK-47s, AR-15s, M4, and even a goddamn MG-42, the kind the Nazis used to mow down squads. Stacked ammo boxes were labeled in white paint, 5.56 NATO, .308 Win, 12-gauge Dragon's Breath, silver hollow points, incendiary. Grenades. Like actual grenades. Frag, smoke, flashbangs, even some with blue paint I didn't recognize. Gas masks, tactical vests, UV flashlights, thermal goggles. Claymores lined a shelf next to bear traps modified with silver teeth. One wall had handmade weapons, wooden stakes, crossbows, weird spears with copper wiring wrapped around the tips. It was a goddamn fortress. And then the shooting range, built right into the wall. Targets set up at various distances. Some were paper cutouts shaped like humans, silhouettes of tall, hunched beasts. Some had extra limbs. All of them had headshot zones marked in red. A long rack ran beside the range, filled with tactical knives, hatchets, and custom guns with scopes that probably cost more than my car. I turned back to Edgar. My voice came out hoarse. "What is this place?" He finally looked at me. His eyes calm, dead serious. "This is where I train those who choose to see. Where I prepare people to fight things the government pretends don't exist. This is the armory of the forgotten war." He walked over to a desk and picked up a folder. Tossed it to me. I caught it. "Inside is your test." I looked down. Thick manila folder. Labeled only with one word. Reaper. "Study it. Tomorrow we begin." And kid. Yeah. Once you open this file, your life won't be yours anymore. You'll either become something real, or you'll die trying. Mr. Edgar tossed me the folder like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Reaper, bold, black letters, nothing fancy. Just a manila cover that had seen years of dust, smudged fingerprints, maybe even blood. I opened it with hesitant fingers. The old paper smell hit me, damp, aged, like something that had been pulled from a basement that time forgot. Inside? Chaos. Organized, brutal, methodical chaos. Military-grade layouts. Pages and pages of coordinates, surveillance photos, topographical maps, hand-drawn diagrams of humanoid entities, some hunched, some towering, some resembling wolves, others looking like they crawled out of hell's womb. I flipped through faster. The next section hit harder. Sightings. Pages labeled with single-word horrors. Wendigos. Vampires. Skinwalkers. Shapeshifters. Demons. Baby stealers. I paused at that last one. It sounded ridiculous, like a campfire story, until I saw the attached photo. A low-res, night vision shot of a creature hanging upside down from a roof, dragging something child-sized. The next divider read, Code Red, Dogman. That's when my heart dropped. This part was thicker. Dozens of Xeroxed pages, all grainy, as if they were copies of copies, distributed like illegal propaganda. Like someone high up wanted to bury the truth but couldn't stop the leaks. Drawings of creatures. Massive canines on two legs, their claws like curved machetes. Some hunched like apes, others lean and upright like muscle-bound devils. Every few pages, a new name. The Gable Lurker, Oklahoma Howler, the Kigahara Beast, the Bastard of Blue Ridge, Unit 94, Escaped Siberian Facility. Some entries had locations scribbled next to them: Nevada Desert, Amazon, Beijing Outskirts, Michigan Woods, Blue Mountains, Arctic Circle, Thai-Cambodian border, and dates, so many dates, starting from 1950, all the way to recent entries. One even read, March 12, 2024, Northern Utah, Class 4 pursuit failure, agent status, MIA. I couldn't hold back. I slammed the folder shut, heart pounding. Jesus Christ, Mr. Edgar? What the hell is this? He gave me that crooked grin, something between a proud father and a man who knew how deep the rabbit hole went. You think you're scared now, son? That folder's just the index. You haven't even scratched the first chapter. I paced, mind racing. This is insane. You're telling me all this freak show crap is real. He stood with both arms folded, a scar on his bicep twitching. I'm not telling you anything. The world already did. You saw it. You stared one of them in the eyes, and you froze. That's not your fault. That's instinct. You were prey. But now you've got a chance to fight back. Most people don't even get that. But these documents, this shit reads like Black Ops intel. He chuckled grimly, walking over to a metal cabinet and pulling out a dusty binder. You ever heard of Operation Black Thistle? I shook my head. Exactly. No one has. That's because it never existed on record. But it ran for 40 years under a joint task force between multiple nations. Their job wasn't to eliminate threats, it was to classify and quarantine them. Know what happened to the team that first cataloged the dogmen? I swallowed. What? He tapped the folder. 7 men went in. 1 came out. He wrote those reports in a hospital bed with 1 lung and no eyes. Said he could still hear them at night. Said they were inside his dreams, marking him. He hanged himself before they could debrief him. I sat down. My hands were shaking. This is beyond government. This is a war, son, Edgar cut in. One that's been going on longer than you or I or any agency existed. The Romans fought these things. The Mayans carved their likeness into temples. You think it's a coincidence every ancient culture has a dog-headed god? An underworld guardian? Those were warnings, not myths. I opened the folder again, flipping back to the dogmen section. One sketch stopped me cold. This one, I pointed. This thing. That's the one I saw. Edgar leaned over. That's the Type 3 Ravager. Seen mostly in Midwest and northern woods. 6 to 8 feet tall. Speeds up to 60 miles per hour in forest terrain. Can smell blood from half a mile away. Carnivorous. Highly territorial. And worst of all, he looked me dead in the eye. They don't forget faces. I stared at the drawing. The jagged teeth. The red-ringed eyes. The gnarled claws. So what now? I asked, my voice low. I read this? Memorize it like a textbook? What does this path even look like? He turned serious. You don't just read the Reaper file, kid. You live it. You eat with it, sleep with it, train with it. The file's useless if you can't run 6 miles with a 50-pound pack, shoot with precision, or keep your wits when a goddamn banshee's screaming in your skull. I was silent. Edgar walked over to the vault door at the end of the chamber. Entered a code. The door hissed. He turned back to me. You want a path? This is it. And make no mistake, it's a one-way road. You follow this, you're giving up everything. Normal life. Safety. Even the right to die peacefully. Because these things... He tapped the folder again. They don't just kill. They hunt, and now that you've seen one, you're on their list. I looked at the file again. Then let's get to work, I said. Edgar gave a slow nod. Good, first lesson starts now. Come meet the real teachers. He pushed the vault door open. Then he flicked on the old breaker panel, a Frankenstein-looking mess of levers and thick black cables. The thing hissed like steam, and I swear the walls shook for a second. He toggled a rusted switch marked Classified X. Suddenly, the lights from the chamber flared up, not white, more like sickly amber floodlights. The stench hit next. Not just old. Rotten. Like gas-soaked meat marinated in sulfur. My nostrils burned. Edgar looked over his shoulder. Still want to see, son? I nodded. Probably shouldn't have. We stepped into the first section. The chamber was the size of a middle school gymnasium, but built like a bunker. Reinforced concrete, steel piping, and a whole lot of goddamn nothing but death. At least 20 sealed glass chambers lined the left side, and I finally got a good look inside them. The first one was 13 feet tall. The thing's skeletal wingspan had to be at least 20 feet wide, extending to the sides like some cryptid Jesus on a crucifix. The bones were blackened, as if charred by flame or soaked in blood. The skull looked humanoid but twisted, elongated jawline, sharpened canines that curled like sabers, and deep eye sockets. First kill of 78, Edgar said, almost reverently. Western Ukraine. Town was reporting missing livestock and drained children. We tagged it as a rogue vampire, Class 4. There was a small tag below the chamber window. Codename, Vicar. Classification, Vampire Class 4. Location, Dniprovsky, Ukraine. Status, sold, client, unknown. I kept moving. Chamber after chamber of horrors. Each more disturbing than the last. The next 4 vampires. Azure, slender skeletal frame, long neck like a heron, 6 fingers per hand. Kill zone, Blue Mountains, Australia. Status, unsold. Jeremiah, twisted lower torso, skull shattered on one side, but teeth remained intact, jagged like stone blades. Kill zone, New Orleans, USA 1985. Status, sold private auction. Ezadra, a female skeleton, prominent rib cage with what looked like blade imprints on each rib. Kill zone, Buenos Aires, Argentina, 1996. Status, transfer pending. Philomel, wings folded across its chest like a bat's, head decapitated. Kill zone, rural France, 2003. Status, destroyed. Edgar tapped on the reinforced glass of Philomel. This one? Took out an entire orphanage before we caught up. Had to use sunlight grenades. Burned through 3 of our guys before it dropped. I didn't ask questions, I just looked. Behind the glass wasn't fantasy. It was evidence. Bones, claws, ancient remains. This was a museum of nightmares, curated by a guy who made whiskey from hell. A few chambers were empty. In transit, Edgar said. Or unaccounted for. Then the weird stuff began. One chamber had a human skeleton, normal-sized, but the teeth were serrated. A goddamn Wendigo. Code name Crawler. Kill zone, Banff National Park, Canada, 1992. Status, deceased. Another chamber held a small, bony creature, childlike proportions, but it stood on 2 legs. Elongated arms, a bulbous skull, and 6 toes on each foot. There were tiny, sharp rows of teeth inside a jaw far too wide for its head. Code name, Baby Stealer. Origin, Eastern Turkey, 1912. Status, extinct. Note, last of its kind. I turned to Edgar. What the fuck is a baby stealer? He looked tired for the first time. My father hunted it. Whole villages lost infants in the night. That thing was a legend long before it became bone. I paused at the last chamber on the far end. It was different. Bigger, stronger sealed. The glass had thick metal plating around the edges and 6 caution labels, including one that said code red, lethal. Inside was the skeleton of something that made me genuinely question my desire to continue this path. 8'2" at minimum. The bones were massive, especially the skull. It had the elongated snout of a wolf but the width of a fucking beer keg. The teeth were uneven, some long, some jagged, and a few were missing. The spine was curved, almost like it hunched forward in motion. The hips were wide, powerful. And the claws, good God, were at least 7 inches long. One toe had a dew claw like a raptor. The ribcage flared outward like it had once held something feral and explosive inside. Code name, Resorkin. Classification, dogman female. Kill zone, Siberian outback, 2008. Status, deceased. Notes, cannibalistic behavior observed, extreme aggression. Handling, body to be destroyed, postponed due to biohazard risk. I stepped back. The thing might have been dead, but it didn't feel dead. The chamber's glass was scratched on the inside. Long, curved claw marks, like it had fought its way until its dying breath. I turned to Edgar. This was what I saw. Or something like it. Edgar looked at me, eyes hollow. That's not her. Edgar walked over, ran a hand along the glass like he was petting a ghost. Your description, desert, posture, behavior, eyes, you didn't meet Razorkin. I looked back at the dogman skull. The next words from my mouth never came. I just stood there, hands tucked deep into the worn pockets of my jeans, fingers brushing up against that goddamn Snickers bar I'd stuffed there earlier. My stomach begged me to eat it, a primal urge trying to ground me in normalcy. But when I tried to swallow, my throat was dry as desert bones. That same feeling you get in war movies, like when Private Mellish in Saving Private Ryan finds himself face to face with the enemy in a knife fight, frozen in horror, silent, because words don't belong in moments like these. That dogman skull, big enough to cup a six-pack, broad, snarling features, skull shaped like a distorted cross between a timber wolf and something straight out of the Descent. Thick brow ridges, sharp canines that still held the residue of dried meat between their roots. No imagination could have built this. This wasn't from any myth. Mr. Edgar, I finally managed, still hoarse. The one that took my friend in the desert, that thing. What does that mean? What kind of status or specimen was that? He didn't speak for a moment, just walked slowly, shoulders heavy, like a man with too many ghosts dragging behind him. Son, he started, adjusting one of the clasps on the chamber glass. We had scattered reports from that area, your deployment zone. South of the Sierra, between the Mojave and the edge of civilization. Missing humans, shredded livestock, craters in the sand that no human or coyote could make. But see, the thing is, most agencies they chalked it up to cartels or wild animals. Convenient excuses. I don't get that luxury. I watched him wipe his hand down the edge of the thick reinforced chamber, his fingers smudging against the fog of dried condensation. As a skilled hunter, he said that part with a kind of bitter pride, I don't just pursue every howling thing people send blurry photos of. These things, dogmen, they're worse than monsters. Some are feral, pure animal instinct. Others? They're learning, evolving. Some have bite force stronger than a Siberian tiger. You ever seen what a tiger does to bone? I nodded slowly, even though I hadn't, not in person. But documentaries don't do justice to the kind of damage I'd seen. They're more than predators, he continued. They're devils dressed in fur and fangs. Some have special abilities. Some shapeshift at night. Others disappear entirely during daylight. There's even rumors, just rumors, mind you, that the female ones are more vicious. Territorial. Smarter. The one that got your friend? Could have been rogue, or could have been nesting. Nesting? I asked, my voice cracking. He turned, eyes sharp. Yeah, You know what happens when a predator's guarding young? You walked into something much worse than a territorial skirmish. You might have walked into a home. Goosebumps pricked up my neck. Now listen to me, he added, putting a firm hand on my shoulder. Even I, with all this, he gestured to the vault, the weapons, the monster zoo behind glass. Even I watch my footsteps. Because one wrong move can turn your life into an endless goddamn nightmare. These things, they don't just rip you apart. They ruin your mind first. Just like you've been feeling. The paranoia. The nightmares. That's not just PTSD, son. That's its scent lingering in you. Go home today. Bring what you can. Small stuff. Whatever you need. You're staying here with me for a while. Your dad wants me to teach you things. Things I don't usually teach anyone anymore. But you deserve it after what you saw. I looked around again, at the chambers, at the bones, the bullet marks in the steel walls of the training range, and the ancient smell of death buried under antiseptic and metal. You sure about that? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Edgar half smiled. You already saw the first page. Might as well learn to read the whole damn book. He turned, walked back up the creaking stairs, boots thudding on the thick wood. As I followed, something caught my eye. Ragnar, the pit bull, sitting calmly by the door, looking straight at me. He didn't bark this time. Just stared. Like he knew. Like he smelled something in me I didn't even understand yet. Loyalty, fear? Or maybe just the echo of the thing that had touched me in the desert. Mr. Edgar, I asked as he handed me a small vial from the shelf near the coat rack. What's this? He sprayed something from a similar vial onto my neck and hands. Cologne. I joked, trying to ease the tension. Masking agent, he said, already walking to the door. Wards off scents. Dogmen follow trail pheromones like bloodhounds with rage issues. This stuff blends your scent profile for about 8 hours. And you're giving it to me now? He paused, finally looking at me like a mentor rather than a hunter. Because they've already marked you. Might not be the one that got your friend, but something knows you've seen it. They remember eyes, son. They remember faces. That's why you stay here. That's why you train. Or next time, you won't even have time to scream. I stepped outside, feeling the air slap my face. The scent still lingered in my nose, the vault, the rot, the steel. As I looked back at the compound, the black house with no windows and reinforced walls, I realized I wasn't afraid anymore. I reached home just past 9:30. The streets were still, wrapped in that eerie suburban silence that only shows up when you come back from something your neighbors will never understand. Porch lights flickered like they were trying to warn me. Like they knew something was following. Mom was there. Arms crossed, eyes heavier than her voice could ever be. She'd been waiting. So, she asked. No drama. Just that quiet motherly tone that makes you want to cry if you're not careful. I rubbed my eyes, shrugged. It was just therapy, Mom. She squinted, like she wanted to believe me but knew better. Before she could ask more, Dad appeared from the hallway, leaned on the doorframe with that ex-military posture of his, arms folded. He didn't say a word. Just gave me a single nod. A knowing nod. We shared a glance. That's all we needed. He knew I'd seen something. He knew Edgar had shown me truths that most men would rather bury 6 feet deep. I went straight to my room. Clock struck 10 p.m. as I grabbed my backpack. Clothes, hunting knives, a battered flashlight, first aid kit, my .9mm Glock. Not registered for supernatural use, but hey, it was all I had. I held the Glock in my hands for a moment. Wondered if it would even dent something like a dogman, or that vampire skeleton I saw. Still, it was like carrying a piece of my old self, something that felt solid in a world that was quickly slipping into shadows. I sat down on the edge of my bed, eyes scanning the posters still pinned to my walls. Predator 007. John Wick, all those action heroes I used to idolize, they made sense now. Maybe I wasn't just some grunt with PTSD and broken dreams. Maybe those dreams were trying to prepare me. Was I becoming a dogman hunter? A paranormal soldier? An underground operative in a war no one knew existed? All those chambers. All those bones. A part of me, the part still full of childlike hope, was starting to believe I had a purpose. That Edgar, the vault, Ragnar, the files labeled Reaper, it wasn't just therapy. It was a rite of passage. A quiet knock stirred me. "Son? You in there?" Mom's voice. I opened the door and let her in. She looked at the backpack, the knife on the bed. The Glock, slightly veiled under a jacket. Her face didn't flinch. "You're not going on a trip, are you?" I forced a smile. "Something like that." She walked over and sat on the bed. Her hands trembled slightly, but her voice was still strong. "I don't know what you're going up against, son. And I don't need to know. But I can feel it. I see it in your eyes. You've got that same look your father had before deployment." I sat next to her. She touched my cheek. "I want you to have a good life. I want you to build something. A family maybe. Love, peace, all that cheesy stuff I never said much about. But more than that, I want you to be safe." I took her hand in mine. "Mom, I'm okay. Really. I've never felt more certain about anything. If I find someone along the way, someone who gets it, someone real, hell yeah, I'd marry her. But for now, this is my road. My calling. I think this was always part of the plan." She kissed my forehead. "Then go, but don't lose yourself chasing monsters. And don't forget who you are. Promise." We hugged. It lingered longer than it ever had in years. I watched her walk out the door, her shoulders a little heavier, like she'd just sent her son off to war. That night, I lay down but didn't really expect to sleep. My mind ran through everything: Edgar's words, the vault, the bones, the dogman's skull, the sniper range, Ragnar's stare. The silence in that black house was still echoing inside my chest. But I must have drifted off eventually, only to be yanked back into horror. It was the cold. A pressure, like ice sliding down my spine. I couldn't breathe. I was asleep, but something was above me, not human, not even remotely. It hovered. Skin like decomposed leather. Veins throbbing under translucent film. Wings, long, crooked, like bat wings stretched too thin. Its mouth hung half open. No lips. Just jagged, ivory teeth. Its hands, claws, wrapped around my neck. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. Its head tilted. Its eyes, milky, ancient, unblinking, seemed to say, "We see you now." And then I woke. Sweat soaked my back. My breath was ragged. I looked around. No one was there. But I could still feel it. The nightmare. Only it wasn't just a dream. I knew the difference now. This wasn't dogmen. No more sleepwalking through this initiation. I was stepping into something vast, bloody, and very, very real. I sat up, wiped my face, and opened my drawer. Pulled out the knife my dad gave me when I turned 16. Time to sharpen the blade. I woke before the sun. Maybe it was around 4 a.m. The air was cold, silent, like the world had paused for something bigger to happen. No birds, no rustling leaves. Just the sound of my own breath as I rolled out of bed. First thing I did? Hit the ground. Knocked out 500 push-ups, old Rambo style. You ever see First Blood Part 2? Stallone's got that silent rage, training in a bamboo hut, sweat pouring like rain. I always admired that grit. Felt like I needed to channel it. I freshened up. Water from the shower felt like a reset button. Then I hit the fridge, almond milk. No time for a full breakfast. My mind was still swimming with the nightmare. With that vampire. With Ragnar's face. Something was pulling me back to Edgar's place. I left a note for my parents. Told them I'd be staying with Mr. Edgar for a while. Didn't say why, wouldn't matter. They'd understand eventually. The morning air bit into my skin as I rode out. The streets were lifeless, like the world had hit mute. When I reached Mr. Edgar's compound, something immediately felt off. No barking, just low whimpering. That hit wrong. I knocked once, twice, no answer. I called out, nothing. Worry crept up my spine like frostbite. The steel-reinforced door refused to budge, but the dog whimpers on the other side grew louder, more distressed. "Screw this," I muttered. I pulled my Glock, an old hunting knife, from my belt, pointed the barrel to the lock mechanism. Right as I was about to fire, the door cracked open, and there stood Mr. Edgar, his right arm up to the shoulder, wrapped in thick bandages. Blood still fresh. Dried flakes smeared across his hand and shirt. "Damn, Edgar," I breathed, lowering the gun. "What the hell happened?" He didn't speak. Just stared at me with the kind of look you give someone when words won't do justice. Then, he turned and opened the door wider. Ragnar wasn't in his usual place. I stepped in. The dogs, Runt, Whiskey, and the others were gathered in a tight circle, whimpering. And in the center, the big pit bull, the heart of the pack, covered in gashes, throat torn open, bandages red with soaked blood. His body laid still, breathless, a silence that roared. We sat on the floor next to him. "He went out like a warrior," Edgar finally said, voice low. "That didn't whine, didn't run, held his ground like the soldier he was." I swallowed hard. "What did this?" Edgar looked at me, his eyes raw. "Fucking vampire." I blinked. "Wait, seriously?" He nodded slowly. "One of the bigger ones. Could smell it before it even touched the ground. I'd hunted one last winter in Siberia. Harsh thing. Nearly ripped 2 of my men apart before we brought it down. We dropped its body into the sulfuric acid tank. You remember that chamber? Chemical mix, hydrochloric, nitric, some EDTA for the bones. Keeps the structural shape while eating away the rot." I nodded. I remembered the smell. He continued, his voice firm but pained. "Around midnight, something was scratching the roof. Not like a raccoon. This was rhythmic. Like fingers or claws. The kind of sound that's meant to lure you." I leaned in. "It tried to bait you." "Yeah," he said. Then came the sound. Mournful. Like an old woman crying. Bastard was playing with sound. Mimicking. Trying to get us outside with sympathy. Ragnar caught on first. Started growling, ears sharp. He paused. Looked down at his wounded arm. UV lights on the roof clicked on, automated triggers. You should have heard the thing shriek. Sounded like a choir of dying rats. Leapt off the roof, tried circling. We moved around the compound. Figured I'd flank it. But it went dead quiet. That's how they operate. Lure, distract, ambush. I whispered. "So what happened?" Edgar exhaled slowly. Ragnar barked once. Loud, then it charged. Came out of the shadows like a damn freight train. Ragnar lunged, locked his jaw into its thigh. Gave me time to raise the lapua. Took the first shot. Forgot I'd chambered regular rounds instead of silver. Shit. Exactly. I hit it, center mass. Should have dropped a man cold. This thing? Barely flinched. Got angrier. He took a breath. Its eyes were like glowing orbs, 8 feet high in the dark. I tried to flank right, line up a shot to the temple, but Ragnar, he didn't let go. Didn't back down. I could see the pain in Edgar's face as he spoke. The loss wasn't just tactical, it was personal. "It ripped into him," Edgar said, his voice low. "Tore him up. I kept firing. Every round I had. It only slowed down when the UV lights tracked it again midair. It screeched, dropped Ragnar, and vanished into the dark. Didn't even bleed." I looked at Ragnar's body again. Part of his jaw missing. Huge chunk torn from his shoulder. It mirrored my nightmare, almost exactly. "Whatever attacked last night," I whispered, "I think it came to my dreams too." Edgar's eyes snapped to mine. "What did you see?" "Something with wings. Skin like shredded rubber. There's like hands on my throat. It wasn't a dream." Edgar stood slowly, eyes stormy. Then we're not done. Not by a damn long shot. Son, listen carefully, Mr. Edgar said, his voice cutting through the cold morning air like a combat knife. Your training starts ASAP. He didn't wait for a response. Just turned and marched toward the back of the compound. The dogs followed until we reached the door to the basement. That's when they stopped. Every last one of them. Not a growl, not a whimper. They just stared at the stairwell. Edgar opened the steel door and motioned for me to follow. You're ex-military. That's good. Whatever you were trained with, it'll come in handy. But in this business, this line of work, you get one chance. You miss it, you're either dead or you disappear. First rule, listen. Second, observe. Third, don't talk unless it's worth hearing. A chalkboard on the far wall had diagrams and kill zones sketched in red. He slapped a file down on the metal table and opened it. I'm not here to coddle you. You train hard. We're going hunting tonight. It'll come again, we know that now. But this time, we'll be waiting. And you're gonna take the shot. He slid a long-range rifle across the table. Sleek, matte black. Lapua Magnum, customized. Long-range beast. Chambered with silver-tipped rounds. And this. He pointed to a mounted device. UV laser. Vampire repellent. Burns on contact. Aim it right and they feel it in their damn bones. I ran my hand across the stock, heavy, real. Deadly. You ever snipe? He asked. Yes, sir. Did some back in camp. Practice, mostly. My partner was better. Edgar didn't blink. Just nodded once. Tonight you snipe. We set the bait. You wait outside. You stay sharp. You get one shot. He opened another case. Inside, gas grenades with silver insignia and a double-edged silver knife with an obsidian handle. Grenades are silver gas. Fog them out, weaken the bastards. Knives for backup. Close range only. You ever get that close, don't hesitate. He walked me to the edge of the compound where he'd built a sniper's perch, hidden in an old water tower, rusted but reinforced. Show me your best, he said. I climbed up, set the rifle, and took a breath. Wind was light, direction steady. I scanned the tree line, picked my mark. A faded scarecrow at 200 meters. Headshot. Slight drift. Compensated. Next shot, a moving target. Edgar had rigged a motorized track with mannequins bolted on, left lung, spine, head. Not perfect. Not sloppy either. Edgar grunted. You'll live. Maybe. We spent hours on formation. Reloading drills. Gas grenade deployment, timing, coordination. When to speak, when to fall silent. How to breathe through panic. How to stay alert without caffeine or adrenaline. Whatever happens, Edgar said as night fell, don't blink. Not once. We set up. Traps with UV lights rigged to motion sensors. Grenades on tripwire. Edgar vanished into the trees, setting the bait. Some hybrid mix of blood, rotten meat, and black sage. I lay prone in the tower, finger on the trigger. Wind shifted and silence deepened. If you liked the first part of the story, do hit a like, share your thoughts, and please subscribe to the channel. It helps us grow, and thank you very much. The second part of the installment will be dropped soon.